Before we get started, just do a little quick roll call to make sure we're good for technical efforts. I see now I can see Commissioner Bobby Steele, Commissioner Anderson, see Commissioner Roden. I do not see Commissioner Croft, but I see he's shown. Commissioner Croft, are you online? Mr. Croft, I thought I may have heard something, but I didn't hear you. Are you online? We'll give Commissioner Croft another second. I do see we have our county attorney online, Mr. Commando, interim county manager, Ms. Sarah Little. I also see Commissioner Croft now. I see him. We'll check his mic in a second. And I see we have also our clerk, Ms. Stacy Harvey, is on by phone as well. Commissioner Croft, is your audio working now?
I know I got a speakerphone on here somewhere.
Commissioner Croft, we could hear you say that.
Say again.
Commissioner, we could hear you. Are you having difficulty hearing us?
Yeah, I can't find the speakerphone.
Go to the bottom right corner of your task menu bar and see if your speaker volumes are turned up. Bottom right of that Windows menu bar. Are you there, Commissioner Croft? Is it working yet? Can you hear us yet, Commissioner Croft? Are you good?
There, I'm getting you now.
Can you hear us now?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, let us know when you're ready.
Say something again.
All right, can you hear us now, Commissioner Croft?
There you go.
All right, we're good. All right, I see from everyone else, I think we're ready to go. So with that being said, I will call to order the meeting of the Board of County Commissioners scheduled for May 19th, 2020 at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And once again, we are conducting these meetings virtually due to COVID-19. What I'd like to do is once again simply point out how we're going to take public comments from the agenda. That being so, we have 4 opportunities here. But in order to understand that, the only ones that you will see on the screen at any time that is throughout this video conference call are the panelists. That panelists consist of the 5 county commissioners, the clerk of court. I think she's by phone, our county attorney and county manager. We're the only ones that you will see. We can talk openly during the meetings. We can share screens if we need to, and we can see everything that's going on in the meeting. Everyone else that is participating in this meeting will be do so as an attendee. You can only speak when we give you the opportunity to speak. by me giving you control of your microphone to allow you. You cannot be seen on video. You cannot share your screen, but you can, of course, see everything that's going on in the meeting through the entire duration. We have 4 ways of providing public comments during this meeting, and we will have 2 opportunities to do that. One at the beginning of the meeting under public comments, and we will close out with another public comment session at the end of the meeting. We will not be taking any public comments during the individual agenda items that we have on the agenda. So if you have an interest of providing public comments, you will need to do so at one of the 2 appointed times on the agenda. The way that you will be able to provide comments, there's 4 opportunities to provide comments. One is by emailing directly to comment@bakercountyfl.org. We have someone monitoring that email, and it will immediately send that message over to us so that we can acknowledge that whenever it occurs. You will be asked for your full name and information so that that email can be put together and sent to us to be able to be reviewed here in the meeting. You can also call directly, phone number 259-0210. If you call, that will also go directly to an email that we will receive. So email directly or call with your information, and that will go into an email that we'll take. The other 2 opportunities is virtually is a function in the Zoom operating system that we're using that you can raise your hand. If you do so during the public comment section, we will at the appropriate time identify your hand is being raised, turn your mic on and unmute you and allow you to speak. The other opportunity is the chat function, which you can chat directly in, and that will pop up on our screen so we can monitor that. So you got 4 different ways that you can contact and send information in and provide public comments, and you'll be given 2 different opportunities on the agenda to do so. And so with that, we will move on to the next item, which is the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. And being I did not make arrangements ahead of time, I'm going to put Commissioner Anderson on the spot and ask him if he would do the honor. We'd appreciate it if you would lead us.
Okay, I'll be honored to do that. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this awesome opportunity, Lord, that you've given us, Lord, to be here today. Father, we thank you for each and everything that you do for us, Lord. And Father, we just ask you to keep your hand of safety upon those, Lord, that's out on the first responders, Lord, that's through this pandemic that we're facing. Lord, we just also want to give you the praise, Lord, because we know right now, Lord, that you have everything under control. And we just want to give you the praise for that. Father, we ask you today, Lord, grant us wisdom that we can make the right decisions for our county. And Father, we also want to give you the grant wisdom to the local, the state, and the federal people making the decisions to open back up this economy, open back up our country. And we just want you to just grant them wisdom to make the right decisions. In Jesus' name, we just want to give you the praise. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the
republic which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. One of the things we noticed in one of our first meetings is the fact that we're sharing our screen all the time creates challenges where you can't see all the participants. So what I do intend to do is stop sharing my screen now. So it makes it much easier for everyone to see the commissioners as we speak and so forth. There's one presentation that we will do that I will revert back to sharing my screen, and that will be to the regional council's presentation. And at that time, I will share the screen, and once the presentation is over, I'll revert it back to no sharing of the screen so we can see everyone. Okay, reading comments. So we'll move on. The first item we have is the approval of the agenda. I would ask, are there any requested changes or modifications to the agenda as it is presented? Do anyone want to move anything around or make modifications, add or delete? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Motion to approve as presented.
Presentation that we will do.
Second.
We have is the approval of the agenda. I would ask, are there any? I have a motion, I have a second. I would also ask anybody that's not speaking, please hit mute on your mic because I'm getting reverberation back. So I have a motion by Commissioner Anderson. I have a second by Commissioner Steele for approval of the consent agenda. Are there any discussions? If not, are there any dissenting votes? Seeing none, that motion carries. The agenda is approved as presented. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda items. We have the minutes from the May 5th regular meeting, the public hearing minutes from the May 5th meeting, as well as the expense reports. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Anderson. I have a second by Commissioner Steele. Are there any discussions? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Seeing none, are there any dissenting votes? Hearing no dissenting votes, that motion carries unanimously, so the consent agenda has been approved. The next item up is for public comments, and this is the appropriate time now to recognize any comments that have been made to see if there's anyone that wants to speak. I'm going to start down the list. First of all, I do not see any comments in the chat window where anybody has made a request to chat. I'm double checking to make sure of that. Okay, I don't see any comments in here from anyone that's wanting to make public comments through the chat window. Clint, has anybody raised their hand?
No, sir, not at this time.
Thank you. Sarah, have you received any emails or phone calls that come in that's been sent over as an email?
No, sir, not at this time.
Thank you. Since the fact that we've not had any public comments sent in by the four methods, we will move on to the next item. We once again, at the end of the meeting, will have another opportunity for public comments. The next item up is constitutional officers. We do have with us on the panel our clerk of courts. Madam Clerk, are there any items that you have you'd like to discuss? And I still see it on mute. So since I hear none from her, if you do, Madam Clerk, come up with something, you can certainly let us know. We'll give you an opportunity later if you do have something. Clint, can you tell me, are there any other constitutional officers online that would like to speak?
I don't see any other constitutionals connected.
Thank you. Seeing we have no constitutional officers, we'll move on to the new business. The first item under new business is the Northeast Florida Regional Council's COVID-19 regional impacts. This is an item on the agenda that has a presentation. So I'm going to take just a second to share my screen and get it navigated to the appropriate location in the agenda. So one moment, please. And Clint, whoever is going to do the presentation should be prepared in just minutes to be ready to make the presentation. I will scroll as they need to. They'll simply just need to advise me when they're ready to do that.
Good evening. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
Who are we identifying from the regional council? I show Sean Lehov and Jack Shad.
Yes, this is Sean Lahav.
This is Jack Shad. I'm here as well.
So
Thank
we're
you.
ready to go when you are.
The floor is ready. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So good evening, Mr. Chairman, commissioners. My name is Sean Lahav, and I'm the Resiliency Coordinator for the Northeast Florida Regional Council. I am joined this evening by Jack Shad, our Economic Development Project Manager. The focus of our presentation for you all today is on the economic impacts that COVID-19 is having on our region here in Northeast Florida. So before we get into a study or the results of a study we recently conducted, we want to preface this discussion by talking about why we're here. So last week we gave a presentation to our executive committee where we talked about the results of this study, and it was requested that we speak to each county commission throughout Northeast Florida. So we're going sort of on a roadshow right now to each county to inform commissioners of the results of our study. So what we're looking at here is the economic impacts of coronavirus. And as we're all aware, there's been social distancing restrictions, there's been shutdowns, and there's been severe impacts to our local businesses here in Northeast Florida. We utilized a software that we have exclusive licensing to, referred to as REMI. So REMI stands for Regional Economic Modeling, Inc. They're a private sector corporation based out of Amherst, Massachusetts. And what REMI is we have licensing to an entire inventory of our regional economy here in Northeast Florida, where we can break it down by employment figures, GDP, and all sorts of other metrics. But then we can also play around with that inventory with inputs, and we can determine what the effects of different policies or scenarios will be on our local economy. Under normal circumstances, we use this technology to attract businesses. So we've worked with Baker County before with Mr. Register from the Chamber of Commerce on economic development forecast, where we look at if a corporation brings capital investment to Baker County, what's the impacts of that from a more optimistic note. But we can also use it in disaster scenarios like this with coronavirus. We looked at a study that was released and published by the University of Michigan that looked at national changes in GDP across industries. And we applied those quantitative findings to our local model here in Northeast Florida. And we produced results that show the potential impacts on employment and other metrics that we might experience in the coming months and in the coming years because of what has happened. So for the rest of the presentation, I'm going to pass it off to my colleague, Jack Shad, to break down our methodologies and assumptions and to look at the actual numbers of what's happening.
Thanks, Sean. Good afternoon to everybody. If we could go to the next slide. So we did use an initial forecast by the University of Michigan that was translated into the data format that the model needs. And in many ways, the forecast that University of Michigan put out is kind of a best case scenario that shows, you know, a big drop in the second quarter of this year, followed by, you know, a very strong rebound in the third and fourth quarters, and then basically returning to where we were at the end of 2019 by about the end of 2021. And if you could go to the next slide for me, Commissioner. So REMI is an annual model. So it gives you results for each individual year. Obviously, we're in a situation right now where things are changing rapidly month to month. You know, we had 2 great months in this year. We had March and April where things sort of went off the cliff. We're seeing some reopening now, and we've got more than half the year left, and it's just not clear which way it's going to go. And so one of the things that we wanted to focus on rather than trying to, you know, rather than trying to focus on the numbers, we felt like the most useful way to use this was to look at the detailed model of our regional economy and focus on how things will be similar to the national picture and how things will be different. And we can try to sort of understand what the effects are likely to be no matter what the final numbers end up being. So if you can go to the next slide, I can sort of show you how that works. This model, which, like I said, we did consider kind of a best case scenario, projected that the total for 2020 will see a decline in gross domestic product of about 2.7%. And if that happens, because of the way the Northeast Florida economy is structured, we will see a decrease in GDP of about 15% more than that. Similarly, we'll see employment drop by about 4%. And obviously, people keep getting born and graduating from high school, and so the labor force keeps going. And so as a region, we'll be almost 46,000 jobs short of where we were at the end of 2019. And we'd see personal income decline by about 5%, which is anywhere, depending on the county, of between $1,500 and $2,000 a year per person. And so the big takeaways that we wanted to leave y'all with is, number one, the economic effect, even of the best case, is pretty severe. And two, the economic effects will be probably 10% to 15% worse in Northeast Florida than the nation as a whole. And that's not a shock to those of us who've lived through a couple of recessions in Florida. We do tend to get hit a little harder than the nation. Interestingly, job losses and GDP loss in Baker County, if you look at that middle column, are a little bit lower than the region as a whole. And I think that's because of sort of the nature of Baker County's economy. You know, there's less on the tourism side, you know, and more on some natural resource and manufacturing side. That 1.7% drop in jobs equates to about 185 jobs lost. Keep in mind, when the REMI model calculates job losses, it calculates them in the county where the job is. And so we know that that about 2/3 of, my statistics are saying about 2/3 of people who live in Baker County who are employed work in another county. And so those job losses would be accounted for in those counties. So the other thing that we wanted to take away, we wanted y'all to take away from this, if you could go to the next slide. The Michigan study is projecting that job losses are going to be concentrated in specific industries. And we've highlighted the ones in yellow that are more concentrated in Northeast Florida than the national average, and that have higher job loss than the national average. And some of these, I think, you know, just from looking around, are pretty obvious. Accommodation and food service, you know, tourism and restaurants, real estate, and others like construction and finance and healthcare are a little bit more surprising, but you are starting to see some evidence of those happening already. And so, you know, as we try to figure out how to dig our way out of this, you know, these are some of the sectors to keep in mind. How can we keep, you know, how can we get some of these folks back to work? And so our final slide just says our next steps. We're finishing up our expanded version of this report, and we're sharing right now with some kind of reviewing partners, and then we'll release the final report to our board, to economic development managers, and really to anyone else who's interested. So we are we're happy to, you know, answer questions, or if y'all have some thoughts or ideas, we would love to discuss that.
Thank you, Mr. Shad. One, let me express our appreciation to the regional council for taking the steps to look at this as a region and then provide the information. The presentation that you had here, is this for the region or is this for Baker County?
So if you go back to the 2 slides previous, you'll see this one has the regional percent change, and then the county percent change, and then the national change. And really that's the takeaway, is we wanted to see kind of how those proportions match up, because we think that the proportions will stay the same even if the numbers change. And so, you know, like I said, we think that GDP loss will be about 15% more than the national average. We think job loss will be probably 10% more than the national average. But we think that job loss in Baker County will be a little bit less than the national average. So we do have some county level data in here as well.
Thank you. I ask any of the fellow commissioners and panelists, do you have any questions or anything that you'd like to follow up on with the regional council presenters?
Mr. Chairman, I really don't have any questions, but I do have a comment. I was one of the regional council board members that had requested this to be sent throughout all of the counties in our region. I thought it was some good information for us to look at and maybe help us. I think we're going to have another presentation when it gets closer. That might be something we can look at during budget time. It kind of gives us a kind of eyeball of what the region's doing. And I thought it would be a good information. I appreciate Jack and Sean for presenting it to our board. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And again, this is one of the reasons as well that when I spoke to Sarah about 3 weeks ago about let's take a look here at our budget now, we know this is going to have impacts to us. We know we're going to see budget reductions and things because you see employment's going to be coming down. There's a number of things here that are decreasing. And so we know some of our revenues are going to be coming down because of this is reflecting the same information. So that's why we put together the concept of expense controls throughout the rest of this budget year, not expending anything we didn't need to. With that, if there's nothing else, I'm going to stop sharing my screen such that it returns back so everyone can see the full screen once again. Thank you, Mr. Shad and Mr. Sean, for that presentation. We will move on now. The next item under new business is the revised budget schedule, and Ms. Cheryl Ruiz is up for that discussion. Ms. Ruiz, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Commissioners. Good evening. With COVID-19, the state has issued delays with companies reporting figures to the state, which means it's delayed the forecast numbers to us. With that being said, we originally scheduled June 9th as our budget day. We would like to, as staff, propose July 14th. We feel that this is still early in the budget process, but we will have some revenue figures with this new date. and I would like to confirm this new date with all the commissioners and verify it's okay.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. This is something that she did bring up, to the fact that right now, if we is to proceed with the current date that we had scheduled, we're not going to have a productive meeting. And especially since we planned an all-day meeting for everyone, it's kind of, I believe it's prudent that we make certain that it be productive, or else we're going to be doing another second day to make up for it. And so the schedule she's put forward is still make sure that we hit all of our critical dates, that we still make all of our mailings and everything that's required, so it doesn't create any delays in that. But we'll have more information that's necessary for the budget. So, any other commissioners have any comments or questions?
Date's fine with me.
Okay, Commissioner Roden, can you nod your head? You good with that date? Okay, Commissioner Steele? And apparently we have lost Commissioner Anderson. Okay, well, there's 3 already that says that date's good. I hope Commissioner Anderson gets you back online. Figure out what's going on and get you back online. I have a chat. Let me see. Yep, I have a chat that says we lost Anderson. So hopefully he'll join us back in just a minute. So Cheryl, let's move forward with the full budget presentation, the revised schedule as you presented, unless you have any other questions.
Thank you and have a good evening.
Cheryl, have a good evening as well. Appreciate your efforts to keep this moving forward. All right, the next item on the agenda is the award for bid 2019-12. This is by Mr. Robert Fletcher. This bid is for County Road 229 South. It is a resurfacing project. Mr. Fletcher, are you online?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You have the
This
floor.
is one of our FDOT scrap funded projects for resurfacing of County Road 229 between I-10 and US 90. We received 2 bids. The low bidder was Anderson Columbia for $504,589.22. And it's my recommendation to award the bid to Anderson Columbia.
Thank you, sir. We have a recommendation from staff. I have a question. How much money do we have allocated from FDOT for the project?
I'm sorry?
How much funding did we have available from FDOT for the project?
It's to cover this bid. This is, I don't know if y'all remember, but we bid it one time. It was way over bid. We come back and done some of the prep work with our crews, rebid it. It was still over budget again. So we went back to FDOT and they come up with additional funds to cover the bid.
Thank you, sir. So the bid amount is, DOT grant is simply covering this project. It's not coming any additional
That's
funding.
correct.
Thank you. It's 100% FDOT funded. Do I have any comments from any of the commissioners, or what's the pleasure of the board?
I move we accept the bid.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Croft. I think Commissioner Roden, I think was second.
Yep.
Okay, Commissioner Roden seconded. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, we will call for a vote by asking, is there any dissenting votes? And hearing no dissenting votes, that motion carries unanimously. I'm going to ask as a separate item, I would think that our IT guys are reaching out to Commissioner Anderson. Do we have any feedback if he's able to get back on? If so, we'll pause for just a moment to give a chance for him to be able to be back online. So let's take about 2 minutes to just hold tight. He's almost there. I could almost see him. You flickered on and flickered back off, so give him a second. Commissioner Anderson, welcome back. Okay, we can see him. All right, he's on mute, so he didn't say anything, but good. We got you back. We only took one action, and that was approve a County Road 229 South bid. This is a project Mr. Fletcher's already mentioned. We've gone back to DOT twice, cut work out of it, did some work ourselves, and we finally have it fully funded. So we will now move on. The next item on the agenda is award bid 2020-09. Mr. Fletcher, this is again another road paving project on O.C. Horn Road paving. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is for Seahorn Road paving of a dirt road. It's what we're considering phase one, where we have got the proper right of way to do that project. We received actually a good amount of bids for this project, and the low bid is from Florida Roads Contracting for $699,340.50. I recommend we award this bid to them, contingent on getting our approval from FDOT. I thought we'd have it by now. They always have to give us concurrence to award, but it didn't come through in time. Or if it's the pleasure of the board, we could table it to the next meeting, whichever is the pleasure of the board.
All right, I would recommend that we move forward with approvals contingent upon that, so it doesn't create any unnecessary delays if we don't have to. That would be my suggestion to the commissioners, but I'll certainly entertain the motion to the pleasure of the board.
Move to approve.
I have a motion from Commissioner Steele. Do we have?
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Roden. Is there any other discussion? No other discussion. We'll call for a vote. Are there any dissenting votes to the motion? Hearing none, that motion carries. Thank you, sir. Mr. Fletcher, you are the man of the hour because you're going to continue on. The next item on the agenda is the request to fill a vacant position. Mr. Fletcher, you're up.
This is request of vacant position for a truck driver. It's actually, we've had a position vacant for a good while. We were trying to get some training in, and we finally got some training in. So we have one employee that's going to be moving up, and this will be filling that position there. Again, for a truck driver position. And hopefully with this one, we'll finally get back, and we get somebody hired to be back to a full squad for the first time in a long time.
Well, given the fact that the report that's just provided by the regional council, it showed that construction is going to be hit by about, I think it's 5.3% or so. This is one that we need to make sure we kind of keep construction moving forward. These guys do construction work. They may be road department, but they do construction. And so with that, what's the pleasure of the board?
Move to approve hiring of the truck driver.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Roden. I have a second from Commissioner Bobby Steele. I see we have lost Commissioner Anderson once again. So we're going to keep going and see what happens from there. We'll welcome him back if he shows up. So with that, I have a motion. I have a second. Is there any other discussions? If not, we'll call for a vote. Are there any dissenting votes to the motion? Since Commissioner Croft didn't say anything, he's the only other one, then that motion carries unanimously. Thank you, sir. The next item up is the authorization of the purchase of guardrail for County Road 23A. Mr. Fletcher, you have the floor once again.
This is actually for guardrail repair. It's right there on 23A North, right there about where the old golf course is. I'm sure y'all are familiar with it. We have times getting quotes from guardrail people. We have for the last 2 or 3 years. I don't know the reason, but we was only able to obtain one quote, and it's in line with some other repair work we've had done. So since it's a safety issue, I'm requesting that we go ahead and do the project with this one quote.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Given the fact that I pass that section of guardrail every time I pull out of my subdivision to look at it, it is a concern from a safety standpoint. So I do believe it would be appropriate to move forward, but I would certainly entertain the pleasure of the board. Do I hear a motion?
Move to approve for repair of the guardrail.
Well, Commissioner Croft said it just before Commissioner Roden did, so he gets the motion. And Commissioner Roden, you go with seconding that motion?
Yes, second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Croft. I have a second by Commissioner Roden. Are there any discussions? Hearing no discussions, we'll call for a vote. Are there any dissenting votes for the motion on the floor? Hearing none, that motion passes unanimously. And with that, Mr. Fletcher, you are free to leave the building. Thank you very much, sir.
Have a good evening.
Have a good evening. Thank you, and tell your guys thanks for the continued hard work.
Will do.
The next item I have on the agenda is item number 7, which is a proclamation of EMS Week. This is one that Ms. Sarah Little, you want to give us some background on it?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So each year as a nation, we do celebrate EMS Appreciation Week. This year, the week of May 17th through May 23rd is that week. So we just want to say a huge thanks to our EMS professionals locally. They go above and beyond every day, and especially right now in the environment that we're in, those guys and gals, they have done an outstanding job, and we're just so proud of them. So the proclamation that is in your packet just recognizes our EMS staff and declares this week as Emergency Medical Services Week. The fire chief, Chief Nelson, actually has some training tonight, so I told him that I'd be happy to present this for him. He does have some activities he'd like to do with his staff this week, as well as we've got some activities from administration that we're going to be doing for those personnel that are in the EMS department. But we, like I said, just want to say a big thanks to them, and would hope that you guys support this proclamation.
Give me a second. I'd like to read it, given the fact that this is a time that, you know, every now and then there's different professions in our industries that need to be recognized. And right now, I'm not sure that there's any more that need to be recognized any more so than what our emergency services do. With fire, rescue, police, and everything, they're putting themselves in harm's way every time. And you think about our EMS, they're the ones that are dealing with sick patients. They are the ones that are getting right close to it. So I'd like to read it. It's the EMS Week proclamation to designate the week of May 17th through the 23rd, 2020 as Emergency Medical Services Week. Whereas emergency medical services is a vital public service, and whereas the members of the emergency medical teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and whereas access to quality health care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury, and whereas the emergency medical services system consists of emergency physicians, emergency nurses, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, firefighters, educators, administrators, and others, whereas the members of the emergency medical services team, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills, and whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical service providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. And now therefore, I, James G. Bennett, Chairman of the County Commissioners, Baker County, Florida, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim this week of May 17th through the 23rd as Emergency Medical Services Week. We encourage the community to observe this week with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. Thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve the proclamation as read?
Motion to approve as read.
Commissioner Anderson, motion. I think Commissioner Croft, you were saying, so you're going to second it?
Sure.
I have a motion. I have a second. Are there any discussions? If not, I'll call for a vote. Are there any dissenting votes for the motion on the floor? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. Once again, thank you to all of our EMS and our first responders for the services they've been providing and continue to provide every day, putting themselves in harm's way to keep the rest of us safe. We will move on. The next item is the Little League season consideration. We'll move forward. Once again, remind you to please mute your mics if we're not talking so we don't get feedback. Ms. Sarah Little, you want to lead this discussion?
Yes, sir. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. I did speak with Little League, and they asked me to present this on their behalf. On May 8th, Commissioner Anderson, myself, the Little League president, our recreation staff, and emergency management director Beck Parker did meet regarding a local Little League season. Obviously, you know, these kids and these parents are just itching to get back to some sort of normalcy. And Little League was hoping to be able to do that while being able to meet guidelines and to keep these kids and parents safe. So in your packet, you do have a continuation plan that Little League has prepared for you all. So in that plan, they have decided that all games will have a 30-minute downtime between games to allow people to get off the facility before new teams arrive. So there's not so many people on the facility at one time. During the games, they're also recommending that everyone abide by the 6-foot rule. So that means that they're going to ask that the parents are not, you know, situated immediately by home plate like they like to do. We're going to ask that they space those viewers out around the field so that there are not so many people near each other. Also, Little League is going to prohibit any food or snacks inside the dugouts during games. If the kids do bring a drink with them while they're in the dugout, they will have to have a lid on that drink, and they're not going to be able to share that. There won't be any team sponsored snacks or anything like that being brought with them. Also, we've been in coordination with having appropriate signage posted at the facility. The sheriff's office has been really great, and we actually have one of those big electronic signs that are there on site. So the messages will be updated to allow everyone to be aware of what the rules and the guidelines will be. Also, the coaches have been informed by Little League what the guidelines are going to be, and they'll be on site to help us and make sure that everyone is meeting those guidelines that we're requesting. Also, our recreation staff will be responsible for cleaning those bathrooms and making sure that they're sanitized. Little League has agreed to partner with us to make sure that those bathrooms are monitored, that they are stocked with hand sanitizer, soap, paper towels, and that they're clean, you know, while the facility is being used. So they're proposing a very quick season. It's a 1-month season, which will be beginning June 1st. Like I said, this is something that they've really seen a lot of local requests to see this happen. I do want to bring to your attention that we've actually had some other requests in addition to Little League. Just if we do consider Little League's request tonight, there may be others that come up. I think we need to take those under consideration and meet with those people individually, just like we did with Little League. If we come up with a plan for them, that maybe we could meet those guidelines, and just the same that we're doing with Little League. But church volleyball has reached out to me. They would like to have some sort of season if they can. So that may be on, you know, an upcoming agenda for you guys to see that information. And then also the local riding club that uses our arena at the fairgrounds, they have been interested in having some sorts of events as well. So like I said, I think we'll have to take those on a case-by-case basis, and let's meet with them and come up with a plan that would work. But obviously this is before you tonight, for your consideration. Like I said, we've met with them. We hope that we can make this work. We know that, like I said, everybody is just really anxious to see some sort of normalcy, but obviously we want to do that in a safe and secure manner.
Thank you, Sarah. Commissioner Anderson, you were the one that originally brought this up, and I think you was part of that team. Is there anything you want to add to it before the board takes it for consideration?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Had got lost half of it, so I didn't hear half of what she said. The reason I don't like technology. I'm actually had walked out of my office into the house trying to get closer to the router to see if that's going to help. But anyway, we did have a meeting, and I think it was a very productive meeting. I think the Little League understands the importance of being safe and trying to be as safe as possible. Everyone knows when you have a bunch of kids running around, I mean, you can only expect so much. But they're under the understanding that we need to be safe, and we need to look out and try to spread the parents out and stuff like that. We went through all that, and I think that we just need to let the kids get back out and play and have a good time. I think they've been stressed enough, and I know the parents definitely have been stressed enough. So I'm in full agreement that we need to go ahead and move forward with this. I'm thinking this is going to be something you're going to be seeing across the state of Florida and in the Little League Association. I think that they're starting to open it back up. You know, of course, we need to take all precautions that's physically possible that we can do. But I think it's time to open the Little League back up and let's let our kids have a good time and have a good season. It'll be a short season, but it'll be a good season and something for them to remember. And I thank you for y'all for just taking consideration.
Thank you, sir. Any other commissioners have any comments? I would agree with the comments that have been made about trying to move forward. I would offer, though, that we make certain that that is stressed very clearly to the Little League's president, and that he stresses to the coaches that we got to ensure that they're taking appropriate actions now, because if they do not, it puts us in a very difficult position with others that may do that and do it really well. So they've got to be partners with us on here, and I'm sure they will be. But just please re-emphasize that to them, to please have somebody, have a volunteer parent walking around checking and reminding people of that. It's important that we do that, because we will get more requests, as you mentioned, Sarah, from the churches with volleyball, as well with the riding club. It's going to be challenging to enforce it with others if we don't have it strictly enforced with the Little League. They're setting a precedent, so please ask them to do that. So what's the pleasure of the board? Do I hear a motion to approve the plan that's been put forth for the 2020 season continuation plan?
I make a motion that we move forward with the plan.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Anderson. I have a second from Commissioner Roden. Are there any other discussions? If no other discussion, I'll call for a vote. Are there any dissenting votes on the motion on the floor? Hearing no dissenting votes, that motion carries unanimously. Thank you. The next item up is the interim agreement for the emergency shelter services. Ms. Sarah Little.
Sorry, I almost forgot to unmute there for a second. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in your packet, you do have an interlocal agreement between the county, the sheriff's office, and the school district. So to give you a little bit of background, if you recall, after Hurricane Irma, the state policy was changed so that school districts had to seek reimbursement from the county for sheltering costs and could not be its own applicant for FEMA reimbursement, meaning that the county had to be held accountable for what the school spent for sheltering and any FEMA reimbursement requests that they had. This created a potential for the county to front the money for the school while they were waiting for FEMA reimbursement. That is something that we had discussed during Irma, actually. Since that time, the state director has changed this policy and has advised that the decision should be made at a county level and not at a state level. So we do appreciate that. Staff supports that we revert back to the previous policy, and each entity should be its own applicant and seek its own reimbursement. This allows for more accountability in spending and helps with the recovery process by not tying up one entity because they are dependent on the other for FEMA reimbursement. The state has asked us to provide an updated MOU that reflects this change, which is what's in your packet tonight. Staff, the emergency management director, and the school board have reviewed this MOU. We are all in agreement with it. There are no concerns with it, and we hope that you support it. You're still muted, Chairman.
And thank you, ma'am. And I assume by a nod of the head, our attorney has also reviewed it and has no concerns. Thank you. That's what I thought. So what is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we move forward with the MOU. I think it's a great idea that we could all hold ourselves accountable instead of trying to wait. I mean, we had some issues last time where we was waiting on one other department and this, that, and the other. This will resolve that issue.
Thank you. I have a motion from Commissioner Anderson. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Roden. Are there any other discussions for the interlocal agreement? Means none. I will call for a vote. Are there any dissenting votes to the motion on the floor? Seeing no dissenting votes, that motion carries unanimously. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is declaration of mission critical purchases. Ms. Sarah Little.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This may take a few minutes, and we actually only have about 5 until our public hearing. If you'd like to take a brief.
I was just looking at the time. Let's do that. Let's take a 5-minute recess from the county commission meeting. We will pick up the public hearing at 6 o'clock sharp. This will give us time to switch everything over. So with that, we will stand recess for about 5 minutes and reconvene at exactly 6 o'clock, and my clock shows 5:55.
Yes, sir.
Just about to start back. I see everyone. I see Commissioner Anderson. He's still on frozen mode as this picture, so we're going to give him a second to make sure he's back. All right, we're going to come back to order. We are going to now open up a public hearing at 6 o'clock. We have one item on the agenda. It is ordinance 2020-11. It is revisions to the Baker County Ordinance Code Land Development Regulations, adding a new section 24-191.01 Agricultural 5.0. If you recall, we had a good bit of discussion since at the last meeting. We asked the planners to go back. We've had some follow-up conversations. We believe this item has been resolved now, and we have a proposal to move forward to the board. And with that, I will turn it over to our interim planner, Ms. Laura Dietrich. Laura, welcome to the meeting, and you have the floor, ma'am.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I want to first apologize. I've been working through a statement that I've been toiling over, and I finally came up after reading through a lot of old minutes, a sentence that I added. So I emailed the staff report to you as fast as I could. However, you probably haven't looked at it. So I'll just read the sentence to you. But first and foremost, you approved 2020-10, which was the agricultural B inclusion of 5.0 in the policy for the future land use amendment in the comp plan. So that was adopted already. This is its counterpart for the ordinance code. It creates a new category called Agriculture 5.0. For the sake of not having to renumber all the sections in the code, I had to create one by adding it right underneath Agriculture 7.5. So it's 24-191.01. So at some time in the future, when the code's rewritten, it'll get its own section number. But for the sake of this for now, you've already heard all of this. I've already presented it to the LPA and to the commission. You went through everything. We basically kept it all the same as Agriculture 7.5, with the exception, of course, of the acreage. It's one dwelling unit per 5.0 acres up to 7.49 acres. So that gap that's being filled between 5 and 7.5. And then you did decide to remove 3 permissible uses by exception. That was slaughterhouse, borrow pit, and mining, 2 of which weren't relevant anyway. And the one that you decided to keep was the feedlot, but we added site plan review to make sure that you were able to look at that specifically on a case-by-case basis. So the only thing new that has been added was with regard to apparently many workshops you had with concerns over projects and accesses to roadways similar to like Otis Yarborough Road. So you wanted to avoid that in the future. And I know that Susan had worked hard with you on that. So I wanted to make sure that we captured something similar to that. I just had a problem with the lot width, because if we added a lot width requirement that was double, it would then create non-conforming lots. And we're here today to undo that. So I finally arrived at this idea, and this is the sentence. Underneath setback and other standards, you have your minimum lot requirements and coverages, yard requirements, and height. So I'm adding a number 5, and that would be the following. Only one direct access is provided from a county or state collector or arterial road, including family lots, temporary family lots, medical hardships, and homestead divisions. So I believe that resolves the issue that you wanted to resolve without creating legally non-conforming lots, because many of those Ag 7.5s are definitely over 200 feet, which RCMH 2.5 is 200. So something even more dense is still only 200. But there are some that are, under 400 feet. They're 300 and something. So I think this resolves that. I'm not sure what the lot width had anything to do with it. So if you accept that, that's what I'm proposing to resolve that issue with the Ag 5.0.
Mr. Chair,
No.
you're.
Thank you. Are there any discussions? What is the pleasure of the board? Do I hear a motion to read ordinance 2020-11?
So moved, read by title.
I have a motion to read ordinance 2020-11 by title. Do I have a second? I have a second from Commissioner Steele. Is a motion by Commissioner Anderson, second by Commissioner Steele. Mr. Commando, would you please read the ordinance title?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Ordinance number 2020-11, an ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners of Baker County, Florida, amending the Baker County Ordinance Code, Chapter 24, Land Development Regulations, and the future land use map by adding a zoning district of agricultural 5.0 to accommodate a gap in land use density, acknowledging those parcels that have various agricultural zoning districts that are not consistent with their acreage, and that only one direct access is provided from a county or state collector or arterial road, including family lots, temporary lots, medical hardship, and the homestead divisions, providing findings by the Board of County Commissioners, providing direction for recording, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Commando. We have a motion, we have a second. Are there any public comments that made on this? We've given, again, 4 opportunities to be able to send in comments. So I'll go down the list. Mr. Shivers, our IT manager and host, can you tell us if anybody raised their hands or put anything in the chats?
I see nothing at this time.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Little, have you received any emails or phone calls that's been translated to emails?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. Since that we have no further public comments, are there any other comments from the board? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. I will open up the county commission meeting. And we have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussions on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All that would dissent, anyone dissenting on the motion, please signify by saying aye. Seeing no dissenting vote, that motion carries unanimously. And that was the only item that we had on the public hearing. So Ms. Dietrich, thank you very much again for working through that issue and finding a solution for that. Is there anything else that you need to add?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Have a great day.
You too.
And with that, we will stay in the county commission meeting and we will move on to the next item on the agenda. The next item on the agenda was what we were going to take up, and that was the declaration of mission critical purchases. Ms. Sarah Little.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. So as you all are aware, at the last county commission meeting, we did discuss a spending freeze of sorts and really put a further review on some of our purchases before we move forward with those. So in your packet, you do have a memo from me regarding the recreation department. We have 3 items that are included in this budget for current fiscal year. So we don't have to worry about, where the money is going to come from. They are budgeted items. But these items really are necessary for the function of the recreation department. So the first thing that we have is actually a 72-inch zero-turn radius scag mower. That is to replace some of our aging equipment. In addition to that, because of the lack of inmate crews that we're not getting right now, our recreation staff are really doing double duty on some of our mowing projects. So this would allow them to be able to keep up with that they're having some issues with now. Also, our field groomer was scheduled to be replaced this year. Our existing groomer is really on its last leg. We have put some Band-Aids on that one to really get it to where we are now. But our staff definitely want to be able to purchase a new one, especially knowing now that Little League season will have at least a 4-week season here. The groomer is used for the volleyball courts as well. So if we see the church volleyball season kick off like we think that they will, we'll need that equipment there. Those 2 items would be purchased off a state contract. So that's something that we'll be looking at if you do approve that tonight. And then in addition to those 2 pieces of equipment, we do actually need a utility trailer. Like I said, that was something that we had planned to purchase. We'd actually like to pay that for that piece of equipment, 50% from the recreation budget and 50% from Shoals Park, because of the ability for us to be able to use it at both locations. So the total for all three of those purchases is $24,600. Like I said, staff is requesting that you all declare those mission critical so that we can move forward with the smooth operation in that department. And I'm just here to hear your comments and just see what the pleasure of the board is.
Thank you, ma'am. What I'll certainly like to hear from the other members of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that I agree with Ms. Little that it is mission critical. For one thing, we definitely don't want to get our recreation field behind through this situation that we're in. We definitely don't need our mowing to get dropped behind. And there's several other issues that we probably need to stay on top of. And I think this is mission critical far as that goes with the recreation department. And we're not talking about $100,000. We're talking about 24, which I know every dime counts. Don't get me wrong. I understand that. But I do think this is something we need to go ahead and move forward with, because it is mission critical, and we are going to be needing this equipment.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Any other comments from other commissioners?
Chairman, I'm in agreement with that because seems like the recreation department, they'd really never get ahead, so to speak, but without equipment, I mean, they'd really get behind. So I just think it's critical also.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we've heard from two commissioners. What is the pleasure?
I'd make a motion. We go ahead and go ahead and tell her to go ahead and get this stuff coming and get it moved, and at least get the bids out. I think she's going to go on state bid. Okay. Yeah, I say go ahead with it, Mr. Chairman.
That's a motion as a mission critical purchase. I have
yes, sir.
Motion, and do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Steele. With that being the case, is there any further discussions? Seeing no further discussion, we'll call for a vote. Are there any dissenting votes on the motion on the floor? Hearing no dissenting votes, that motion carries unanimously. That's item number 10. Next item we have on the agenda is item number 11. It is the county manager vacancy position. And I'd like to lead in with where we're at in the process and then open it up for discussions. As we recall, we went through a process where we hired the services of the Florida Association of Counties to work with us to develop a project, a job description, go out and advertise and so forth. And then also to pare those applicants down to make recommendations to the board. Unfortunately, just before we was able to do that, we got hit with COVID-19 and everybody got held, couldn't travel, couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything. And so we've been on hold. It was my intention at the last meeting to add a discussion on this meeting, as we are now, to get direction from the board on how we would want to move forward. And so again, the purpose of tonight is to have that discussion. What is the pleasure of the board? How do we want to move forward with the filling of the current vacant position that we have as county manager?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Croft, you're recognized.
we started this process, it seems like forever ago now. But the Florida Association of County Managers was helping us with it. I think they've done a good job. They met with us individually, got what we wanted and felt us out for what we were looking for in the position. We've committed tax dollars to pay the fee, which is very minimal in this type of search. And they've done a good job up to this point. We've got a final report. And I just feel like we need to follow on through with the process.
Thank you, Mr. Croft. Do I hear other commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I believe the same way. I believe that we have advertised. I think that we owe it to the the people who pay their taxes, we spend their money to go through this process. I think we can go ahead and follow this process and see where it leads. I think we all made some comments in our last meeting but I think that we owe it to our constituents and we owe it to Miss Sarah Little to follow this process and then to let it go. And then that way she don't feel out to me. If I was her, I ain't her. So I'm gonna speak as Jimmy being Sarah, which is a hard thing to do. But I think I would want the process, she would feel more comfortable with the process going as is, as was presented, and then see how it comes out on the other side. But I think that we have went through this far in the process, and we should continue in the process. And we owe it to those that took the time to fill out the applications and to do that, for us to sit back and listen to their qualifications and what they can do for the county. And I think if you would ask Miss Sarah, she would probably agree with that, because I don't think we should step in right in the middle of the process and just stop it. And we're actually not in the middle, we're at the end of it. So I would think we should move forward, as Commissioner Cross said, and with the process that has been put forth.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Other comments?
Chairman, I think it would be unfair if we didn't proceed with the other applicants to look at their qualifications. I understand one did back out of 4, but and I feel like Commissioner Anderson, that I feel like Sarah would want us to do that too, but it would be unfair to stop a process that we ask the committee to complete.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Steele, any comments? Everybody else has spoken. I'll give you the opportunity as well.
Yeah. Well, I agree with all the other commissioners as far as continuing the process. Just want to make sure that, and again, I don't know how that would work, but I definitely want to make sure the recommendation that we talked about last week, that depending on how this comes out, if Sarah, I'm not sure, since she per se didn't apply, I don't know how that works as far as her being the candidate that we would interview, but definitely want to make sure she's in the pool.
Thank you, sir. We've heard from all 4 candidates, and I'll tell you, I'm going to go back and say the same thing I said last time. Sarah's done a fantastic job through this COVID-19 with helping coordinate and facilitate the entire discussion through this. But I agree that I think it's appropriate to follow the process. Let's work through and see what's best. And I think that's going to serve both everybody well in the long run. But I think let's work the process and see what is best. I think all of us have the right intentions, and is to serve the county and everybody here in the best way possible. And Sarah's a great asset to us. We recognize that. And she's been great here. And it's given, quite frankly, it's given us some latitude to be able to work through this process and not have to be overly concerned with not having somebody in the role. She's certainly done a great job with coordinating things. So I appreciate that effort as well. So what I'll do is I'll reach out. I'll get Ms. Kathy to move forward, our human resources manager, to move forward with now finding some times to schedule some interviews. I do believe I would like to move forward with actual interviews as soon as we can, and find the best way to do that. I'm not as a big fan of Skype interviews and virtual interviews, not for a position of this. And so I would like for us to find a way. I believe we can still do live interviews in a manner and set up this room such that we can still meet social distancing requirements. But we're hiring at this level. I think we need to make certain that we have some face-to-face eye contact 6 foot away, but I think it's still important to do so. And so what the candidates that, if I recall, none of them are tremendous drive or tremendous distance from us. They can very easily travel here in a vehicle. And so I would like to work through how we can conduct the interviews, in what room, and how it's going to be set up such that we can move forward with actual interview. If that's okay with the board, that's the direction I would suggest that we do, but I'd certainly love some input.
Chairman, I am definitely not in favor of a Skype or a video interview. We've had that experience before, and I'm just not in favor of it. And do we need to make some kind of recommendation to make sure that Sarah is included in that or not?
I'm not sure how we get there, to be honest with you. The applicant closing period is come and gone, it's passed. It's,
Right.
I don't know legally how we do that, to be honest with you, or if we're getting, or here, if we get crossed somehow with the advertising, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Let me do this, if this is acceptable to the board, let me have the conversations with our human resources as well as legal. Make sure if we can figure a way to make that happen, we'll certainly try to do so. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Mr. Steele, would that be acceptable?
Yes, sir. And again, I would second or third the Skype experience, no more.
I will fourth or fifth it, because if they can't come to Baker County to do an interview, I'm not going to hire your behind. So that's just the way I feel about it.
Come on, Mr. Croft, you got to jump in too. You got to be number 5.
Yeah, I kind of like the in-person.
It is unanimous. It will be an in-person interview, okay? We may be socially distanced, but we will have people sitting in a room and make accommodations for the public if they choose to show up as well. So we just got to find, it may be at the Ag Center in the auditorium, but we'll find a way, okay? Any other comments or discussion? I think we have direction. Is everybody good with moving forward as just recommended? Okay. Seeing heads nod, we will move forward. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next item is old business. And old business, Ms. Sarah, you up for pending business report?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So a few updates to your pending business report. The LDR revisions are on schedule to be presented to LPA in June and to the Board of County Commissioners in July. That document is being finalized by Ms. Susan Frazier. So I hope to be able to share that with you all pretty soon so that you can have time to review it before it comes to you for a vote. Also an update to the Central County Fire Station. So we are really a little more than 90% plans have been reviewed. We're really at the final stages there. We expect the final plans any day now. We were expecting them around May 1st, but unfortunately COVID-19 has put that in a little bit of a delay. So June 1st is our target to be able to have those plans from our engineer. And then also the project will be ready to bid on July 1st. The COA bus wash, I've not received a signed contract back from DOT, but once we do that, we'll begin talking about that project. And then also the St. Mary's Cove boat ramp grant, we do have some status updates on that. We actually were able to resolve the issue with the electricity company with the power pole that was in the way, so that has been corrected. And also our permits have been submitted to the Water Management District, so we are moving forward with that one finally. And then also, I wanted to discuss with you guys tonight some of our COVID-19 related office projects that we've kind of talked about over the last couple of weeks. So we did have projects identified in the library, administration office, community development, extension office, tax collector, property appraiser, supervisor of elections, and clerks. And what that means is that we identified those areas to be in close contact or have lobbies with personnel that would be in close contact with the public. And so we wanted to make sure that we had some glass or plexiglass partitions in place before we talked about reopening. So those projects are underway. We have county staff working on some of them, and we have a local vendor that's doing some of those for us as well. We anticipate that all of those projects will be completed by the end of this month, and we would like to consider reopening our offices to the public on June 1st. I have been in coordination with our constitutional officers and the city of McClenny. We would like to all be able to do that at the same time. I think that makes it easier for our citizens to know which offices they can go to without being confused on something that may be closed and everyone else is open. So as long as everything goes as planned and that those projects are complete like we anticipate they will be, then you're going to be seeing that our offices reopen on June 1st. Obviously, each office will be slightly different on how many people we may allow inside and how processes may take place, but we are ready to be able to see our public face-to-face again. So I think that's a lot a lot of people will be excited to hear that as well. And really, that's the only updates that I have to the pending business report. If you guys have any questions about those or maybe some of the other projects that I did not go over, I'd be happy to answer those. You're still muted, Chairman.
Thank you, Sarah. One of the things you may want to take a look at is on the Central County Fire Rescue. Seems that that's a low priority according to your report. I'd say right now, since we got money, it needs to be a higher priority. Let's keep that thing moving.
Yes, sir.
I had a citizen raise questions to me about it this weekend. Want to know where things were at with it. So you may want to just continue to make sure that that stays a priority.
Sure, and I'll change that priority status as well.
Thank you very much. Does any other board members have any questions for Ms. Little?
Miss Sarah, I got one question. Trevor was supposed to send me over some plans. I'm not sure that he sent them through the county email. I have not seen them or received them. Could you check on that for me?
Yes, sir, I sure will.
I don't have his phone number. I'd already called him. So, but if he would, see if he could get those to me through the county email, because he might have sent them on one of my other emails, but I normally don't check some of the old emails that I've had. So if you would, just see if you get that to me, please.
Yes, sir, will do.
Thank you very much. Anything else from the panelists, Ms. Little? If not, Sarah, you're up now for the expense report for items over $4,500.
Yes, sir. Thank you again. So at the last county commission meeting, you guys approved an amendment to our purchasing policy, which increased those tiers that we talked about. Just in listening to your conversations, I know it was brought up that this expense report was actually on the consent agenda for a long time when the limit was anything over $3,500. So I did put it on the actual agenda. If there's anything that you guys would like to discuss, we could go over that. I do want some clarification. Do you want to continue to see it this way? From listening to you all at the last meeting, it seems like we might want some more spotlight on this report than maybe it was getting before. So we certainly can continue to present this under the county manager's items if you'd like to see it that way. But the report is there. Really, those are just some of our standard monthly invoices that we have to pay or draw requests from our constitutional officers. So if you've looked at it and you do have any questions about anything specifically listed, I'll be happy to answer those for you as well. Okay. I'd also like to say that one of the conversations that we had for the purchasing policy update was a little bit of a concern on that second tier, the $2,000 to $4,500 range, which requires 2 written quotes and a department head approval. Just from listening to your comments and kind of thinking of ways that maybe we can ease some of your concerns in that, to be able to give the county manager the ability to see those purchases before they're actually processed. I did talk with our department heads, and what we're going to be doing moving forward is if your purchase falls in that second tier and you've done your due diligence and you're ready to move forward with a PO request, we do ask that that PO request to Baker Finance is done via email. We do have an email address that everyone in the finance department receives, so there's multiple eyes on that. In addition to that, we have asked that they CC the county manager in that email request. And the county manager will reply approved, or if there's other questions that need to be made or answered, then we'll answer those before the finance department issues a PO. And then once the county manager responds with an approval through the email process, then the PO will be issued and the department head could move on. So that just ensures that one more set of eyes are looking at it. I hope that clears up some of your concerns from those larger dollar amounts. And hopefully, like I said, that helps ease the process for our departments a little bit better.
Thank you. Sarah, just one of the things, I like the report. I think there's a number of items on here. Again, this is the board decision, but there's a number of items that I don't know that we necessarily need to see if it's easier to filter. For example, the standard payments that we pay to other constitutional officers, I'm not sure that's really necessary that we see those, because that's allocating the budget. We're not going to be changing those. So those are set amounts. You know, that comes down, all of these set payments to other constitutional officers would fall into that. But what things like that jump out at me, like there's one for the National Forest for Handiworks of Jacksonville emergency lighting for $7,400. Mm-hmm. Not sure what that is. That's the kind of things that kind of raise a red flag of what is that? That's different. Contracted services that we know are going out, where I see several in here for like Norfolk Professional Services. Those are considered things. Good with having them on here. It just keeps us sensitive to what it is. But things that we know are set amount that's going every month to me, those could be omitted from this report, but that is certainly the pleasure of the board.
Yes, sir. And just to answer your question, that purchase was actually for our Firewise truck. I actually emailed you out a picture of it a couple weeks ago. That was the lighting package that went on that truck.
Fair enough. Okay. So those kind of things, it's good to realize those because they're out of the usual, but the standard payments to the clerk of courts, to the tax clerk, those kind of things, I'm not sure that it's necessary to regurgitate them on here. It's the things that are different that I think we want to see. That's not a standard payment.
Okay.
I would agree with the chairman on that. Just something that's out of the blue that we just don't see every day is what I was looking for.
Okay.
The payments we're making, every monthly payments and stuff like that. I don't think it should be on this report. So I would agree with the chairman on that.
And again,
Have any other questions, Mr. Steele?
oh, sorry, Mr. Chair. No, I was going to say I appreciate you, Sarah, taking in. And I think it's something I brought up the week, and it wasn't a concern or a lack of trust or anything. That's not even it. It's just, again, I think our transparency. You see those things, we trust that. And again, that's all I was asking is that, sometimes when we have those oddities, like Mr. Chairman Bennett just brought up, just so somebody else is looking at it. Not a lack of trust in anybody, just more of just another set of eyes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for the on the expense report? If not, we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the county manager's report. Ms. Little, you're up again.
The only thing that I'd have to say, Commissioner, is just another recognition for our EMS staff. They really have gone above and beyond in the last couple of months. They're just outstanding groups of people and just super proud of them. And I'm glad that we're recognizing them tonight by that proclamation. And also, in addition to that, the Sheriff's Office and the Health Department, the communication and the coordination that we have had through this entire COVID-19 pandemic, it's been we've been really, really effective at communicating and working together. Just glad to be a part of it. You're still muted, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to not get feedback, and I hear air conditioning stuff kicked on. Thank you. Technology's great. Anything else from Ms. Little? Seeing none, we'll move on. The next item is the county attorney. Mr. Commando, you are up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think everyone knows that the governor has extended the ability to have virtual meetings through July 7th. That does not necessarily mean that we have to have virtual meetings through July 7th. Just pay attention, I would say, to kind of the reports and announcements that are coming out. It seems like information changes daily, and then we can make an informed decision based upon what we believe is best for everyone's safety and the citizens. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any questions for the county attorney? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to the next one. It is commissioner comments. And on my screen, I see in my top left in the upper left square of the Hollywood Squares is Commissioner Bobby Steele. You are now up.
Mr. Chair, I don't have anything for tonight that I'd like to comment on. I'm glad everybody is hopefully still just God be with everybody's families and continue to be safe. And we appreciate, like I said, Sarah, what you said about our EMS and our fire and all the rest, just in general. I take that back. I was Saturday, I guess it was Saturday. I was actually saw the flags on the highway. They were put up by the Heroes Association. I went into Ace, and of course, Larry was there and his group, and they were doing hot dogs. And, I just told all of them, I said, I'm a little bit, I guess I'm just proud of the fact that between our county, how much we take pride in our schools, our veterans, and again, I'm just glad that it was a warming sight to see that. And again, so I appreciate those all the veterans again coming up and this next week, Memorial Day, for what they did for our country. And again, that's all I have to say, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Steele. One of the things I'll say, I can't get the correct name for the organization that does those and puts those out. Sarah, do you remember what the name is? The Women's Political Network? Is that it?
Baker Political Women's Network.
Okay. I was trying to get there. I will tell you this, those folks that do that is all volunteer. And you recall, it's always been done out on State Road 228. And they started this to get these moved over to US 90 about 3 months ago, because I was assisting them just to get the right contact of who to reach out to. And so they've been working on this for the last several months now to get approvals to put them here, because they simply wasn't enough room where they were at. And every year it grows and grows, and they actually thought they was going to have extra space here. And I just noticed, I guess it was yesterday, I drove all the way down to Ace. When I come back, the flags were on both sides of the road, all the way back up to Louder Street as well. So I'm not sure they got enough room now to continue on. So again, tremendous job. It is a great reflection and creates a tremendous amount of pride here in the county to recognize those veterans and for the services they've done. Okay. The next item, or the next one up, is Miss Kathy Roden. You're in the center square at the top center. You're up.
Well, all right. I have some kudos too. I just want to thank all of our EMS this week, Appreciation Week. Thank those and all the essential workers. I had a friend who was in the hospital, and she said, you know, even the cleaning people need our kudos, because they're working hard to keep everything safe for the staff there, for the nurses and the doctors that work there. And I thought, you know what, they do, really, they probably never get recognized. But then also our school, Sherry Rollerson and all of our principals, they went out of their way to try to make a special showing for our graduates this year. And I have 2 grandchildren graduating. I appreciate that. I appreciate it for all of our seniors. And of course, our Women's Political Network, they go out of their way. They do a lot of things for our veterans here and for our community. And I just want to thank them also. And then just to look back, Memorial Day is coming up, and let's just thank those that have given us the freedom to even be able to Zoom tonight, to do whatever we want to do, to have the freedom to do that. I just want to thank them for that. And that's all I have.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Anderson, you are up.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I could just go right back with what the previous commissioners said. I mean, you just can't thank the people, the EMS, the doctors, the nurses, the cleaning people, our veterans for what they've done for us, and just our community as a whole. I am proud to be a Baker County. I don't know of any other county that I would rather live in than this great United States that we have. I don't think there's another one out there that could even come close to living in Baker County. You can see that through the veterans. You can see that through the political networks. You can see that through the staff that we have. You can see it through our EMS. It's just amazing how we all come together and when we really need to come together. So kudos to everyone out there that's watching this. I'm proud to be a county commissioner and represent Baker County. And then on that side note, I'm gonna apologize for all the issues that I've been having today. I'm actually standing in the bedroom in my house so I could get close to the router instead of having to sit on top of the router so I can even be on here. With that, I'm gonna say, if we're gonna open our county offices up the first month or the first week of June, I think that our next commissioner meeting in the first week of June, we need to be at the chambers and not on this Skype, Zoom, whatever this thing is that we're on. So that is my recommendation, and I would love for the rest of the commissioners to agree with me. Thank you, and God bless Baker County.
Well, 2 things. One, Commissioner Anderson, we appreciated the tour. You know, you had your camera still on, so we got to see the tour as we went through. And I have to tell you, I was having a hard time listening to the others because hey, where's he at? Where's he going? Is he going fishing? So anyway, thank you for your comments there. We'll round it out with Commissioner Croft.
Yes, sir. Thankful for all of our EMS folks. I'm not going to go back and retract, but I don't mean to make it sound oversimplified by saying what everybody else said, ditto. Fire rescue is definitely something near and dear to my heart. So we're proud of them, as we are all of our county staff. I will say as a closing comment, and it ties in with Commissioner Anderson's thing about the next meeting. I think we need to be mindful. I agree it's good to get back, to some semblance of normalcy, but I think we need to be very mindful of how we're arranged, how everything is done. I think we're still so early on, we don't know what's going to happen with this virus, and we don't want to put anyone in danger just because we want to be back. But I was discussing with some friends the other day, and we're talking about, will there be a new normal? I think there will be a new normal in our country. I hope that giving this type of access to the citizens of Baker County becomes a new normal. I think we've shown that there's interest. I didn't think to look today, but a couple of weeks ago, we were well over 1,000 views on our last board meeting. 1,000 views. Now, wonder when we ever think of even getting a crowd like that to show up for major public hearings. I think the interest is there. I think people can view it on their own time. Even our live stream today, I know it's been up in the 40s of live views, and during the day. So there's people tuning in, watching it live, and then coming back, checking it out later. So I think this is one of the things that needs to be kept as part of the new normal. And I know we've got one video camera that was purchased a couple of years ago, and I mean, we've got the ability. We need to utilize it. I think this is a tool that gets our government more in the front of the public, the ones who fund it and who we represent. And I think every chance we can do that, we need to seize the moment.
Thank you, Commissioner Croft. And I'm going to second the motion or the idea that we figure out how to continue to do this to a large degree. I agree that we need to get back together sitting in this room, but we do need to figure out a way to make sure that we're streaming as well, to give people access to the information and so forth. So what I'll do is I'll coordinate with Clint and Sarah. Let's figure out a way to do it. It may be that we have one camera that catches the whole dais, if we can, be able to do it and stream. Once we're sitting here in the meeting together, we don't need Zoom, okay?
Right.
Because people have the opportunity to come and meet just like they currently do. We could still consider emails and as a form of input at our public meetings. But I think the way of getting information out there and doing it live, that can be done with us still sitting here and being streamed live without us having to go through mute, unmute, and actually having Zoom. Because I think the purpose is to be able to provide information out to the public in a very efficient manner. Live is fine. But I think and it's not required because anybody can still come here. We're simply providing another opportunity just to look if they want to. And so what I'll do is I'll get with Clint and Sarah and let's see if we can figure out a way to do that. I'm not sure if it can be done by the next meeting, but they are pretty resilient and quick in response to it. So I'm going to challenge Clint to find a way to say, yes, we can. So I'll give that challenge up to him. I do have a note here that says we can donate a cam to you guys from Robin. I'm not sure who Robin is, but let me say Robin Mayo. And so Robin, let me express our appreciation already, but I will leave that up to Clint and Sarah to work through how we may get that. That was a comment come in live on our chat. So we'll work towards that end. Any other commissioner comments? I've got one I do want to follow up on as well. Mine is the memorial flags. This has already been talked about. Great representation. Thanks to those who put forth the effort to make that happen every year. It's here for 2 weeks and they're gone. So Better enjoy them while you can, because in 2 weeks, you'll drive by one day, they're there, the next day you'll drive by and they're gone. It's like they magically disappear. My last item is actually with business, and it's work related here with the commission, and that there is a town of Glen St. Mary meeting that is going to be, it is scheduled for 7 o'clock tonight. It is virtual, so it's all by teleconference, not visual. But one of the items that's on the agenda to be discussed is the RV park in Glen St. Mary. I raised this item up at the last meeting. I still remain very concerned over it. There will be discussions on how to deal with the RV parks and the access of water being provided to that site. The developer continues to try to work through and resolve some issues there. But at this point, they have not gotten, my understanding, there's been no relief over the request of about a $750,000 fee to tap into the line only. Not to install the line, but simply to connect to it. And then he's still supposed to pay the money to connect the entire fee back and pay the normal rates as well. I find $750,000 excessive. And based on the usage, that equates to about a $6 a gallon tapping fee versus the city of McClenny's normal fee for tapping is in the neighborhood of about 63 cents, 68 cents. It's much less. Even larger municipalities are less than $1, okay? So there is a meeting that is going to be scheduled this evening. The developer is continuing to try to resolve the issues. I know the town of Glen St. Mary's wanting to do what's right, but their initial recommendations that was received from their engineers is excessively, and to me, almost incomprehensible that they can even put that forth with a straight face. One of the things that was initially asked by the developer when this project started was, are there any impact fees? And the answer was no. There's not any impact fees. Even the town of Glen St. Mary said no. However, later, after they committed and moving forward, does it come back for a water impact fee? That was the heading of the documents with the invoice. When that was pointed back out as, well, it's not really an impact fee, it's a tapping fee. Listen, we want development to come to this county. It seems a bit out of place to work with the developer as hard as we have to work through getting additional state funding for design, working with adjacent property owners for the installation of roads to get the development here. They got a developer that's willing to pay for the line and connect it back. It provides additional economic opportunities for the county and the town of Glen St. Mary. And I'm not sure how to get it through to the town of Glen St. Mary. I intend to leave here and try to get to that, to be able to call into that meeting to express my concerns as an individual commissioner. I'm not representing this board, but I will represent myself as a commissioner, and working so hard to get economic development opportunities here for this county, to have another local municipality who we work very closely with and was extremely considerate of their input in the fire assessment that hasn't been paid by their citizens for many years, now to have an impediment here for this development opportunity. This developer, if depending on tonight's decision, he's going to pull out and put in his own, this request and put in his own water plant if he has to. But he can't wait for another study for them to spend almost $5,000 of public money that is proposed on the agenda. I think it's like $4,800 to do another study to come back with a revised recommendation for a fee. He's not waiting another month. He can't. He's got investors, he's got money, he's got projects being built. And I'm afraid that the town is going to lose out on having that water line installed that allows additional economic development opportunities. Okay. I went into more details tonight than I did last time. I was anticipating this would be resolved, but since on the agenda, it doesn't appear that this is an item that's going to be taking up in a manner that I think is going to resolve it. I wanted to bring it to your attention. I do intend to be on the call if at all possible to voice my concerns after working so long to try to get this economic development opportunity here in the county that I think is a really good opportunity for more development in that quadrant. The next developer comes in, they're going to have to deal with the same tapping fee. Not only that, they're going to have to pay for the water line to be put in. We got a developer that's willing to do it. So I bring you up to speed to know where I'm going to be having conversations this evening, and so that if But I certainly intend to go to represent an individual commissioner. Since it hasn't been an action item for this board, I want to let you know where my thoughts were. Okay?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
you can represent me because I agree with everything you just said. So
Thank you, sir.
when you speak, you can put me right in there with you.
Thank you, sir. All right, if that's it, there are no other items on the agenda. I have nothing else. What I would like to bring back to Commissioner Anderson's comments in regards to what is the pleasure of the board with respect to the next meeting? Do we want to continue to meet or to virtually, or do we want to move forward with the next meeting here and try to stream it?
Mr. Chairman, if we could, why don't we get the staff to look at how we could, do the social distancing and how the room would have to be set up? Let them look at, you mentioned it earlier, but seriously, it could be a possibility, the Ag Center, and just see what, where could we do it the safest and still be the leadership we need to be.
Thank you, sir. And let us have an opportunity to do that, and then we can make that call as the best way to do another one, virtual or not. The challenge with the Ag Center is not just the square footage area. We've now got to make sure we got microphones and things that can record these meetings as we are now.
Right.
So when we leave out of this particular room, we have a number of additional challenges that we take on to do that. And so I think those challenges may be far greater than doing it virtually. But I am a little bit eager to get back. I'll have to tell you, it's unique to be in this meeting, running an entire meeting in this boardroom, and I'm the only one in the entire room. So,
Mr. Chairman, I say, why can't we just have it in there and then we can stream live and then we can have the public's input the same way we're having now. They can have call in or they can have email. We don't stop none of that, but we could, all the board members could be in the room together.
and if we do that, an opportunity may be that we do that, but we bring our laptops and we have our laptops up and we're doing it live Zoom, but we're all sitting here at the table still, but we're still Zoom. Okay, let us look at opportunities on how we can do that, and depending on if we can work it out, we'll have the next meeting or not, but I'll make that call after coordinating with staff on how it can be done. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Any other comments or things good for the board?
Move we
Yeah, I
adjourn.
have something else.
I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm sorry. I did see you wave your hand. My apologies. Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
sir.
Here you have the floor.
We actually do have a public comment, but before we get into that, I actually had a note on the back of my pending business report that I promised I would talk about tonight if we have just another brief moment. So I did have a nice conversation with Miss Barbara Yarbrough, who's on the board of directors for the COA. And she just wanted to give a big shout out to her team there at the COA and also the sheriff's office and Feed Northeast Florida for all of their efforts in helping provide meals to our seniors. So before COVID-19, the COA was providing about 550 meals a week to Baker County residents. Right now, we have averaged about 4,500 a week. That's 3 meals a day that we're providing to these residents of Baker County. The medical trips have been down, so the drivers of those vans and buses that you see have actually been helping get those meals out to everybody. We've got about 30 residents that still come by and pick those meals up a day at the facility. They obviously can't come in, but they do have a drive-through pickup service where they're giving out those as well. But the rest of those are through a delivery basis. And the sheriff's office was great. They've helped out in providing some coolers and a new refrigerator for the staff down there. And then also, like I said, with Northeast Florida has provided some food and disaster kits also for those citizens. So that's a huge accomplishment for the COA. I don't know if you guys have been in there, but that building is probably not really equipped to process 4,500 meals a week, but those staff at the COA have been able to do that. So that's a huge, huge shout out to those guys and gals that are down there and the work that they've put in. So like I said, Miss Barbara just wanted to make sure that you all were aware of the amount of meals that they were providing to the community and just the effort that was going out from that department.
Sarah, why don't you put together draft a letter from the Board of County Commissioners expressing their sincere appreciation to them, because they are a private nonprofit and they are serving our citizens left and right. And let's get a letter, and let's all the 5 commissioners sign that letter and send it over.
Okay, will
I
do.
think it's just to recognize it because, You know, we talk about unsung heroes a lot, and there are a tremendous number of them right now going on with this COVID-19. And those are some that we sometimes don't think about. We've got citizens that are doing social distancing. They're staying home. Our seniors, the most vulnerable in many cases. And we didn't even think about the services that they are providing to go from 500 to 4,500. That's a monumental task, and they have done it. And we have not heard one thing from them or one request to say, hey, come help us. Not financially, they have done it. And so I think it's at least worthy of us sending them an official letter that says, thank you very much for serving the citizens of the county as you have as a nonprofit. Okay.
Okay, and we also actually have a public comment. It came in from Robert Isaacson. He requested some information on Fred Harvey, asked that, will Fred Harvey ever get paved as it was discussed years ago?
Let's do this. Let's have a chance. I'm not going to try to answer that off on the fly here. Let's make sure that we check with Mr. Robert Fletcher to see if it's on a list of priorities. I'm sure it is, but where's that? And then Sarah, if you don't mind, then provide that comment back to him. Okay?
Certainly.
Mr. Croft, was there something you wanted to add?
No, sir.
Okay. With that being said, there's no other items. We stand adjourned. Thank you.
Have a great week.
Good night.